Welcome to 1 hour of Jurassic Park lore to fall asleep to. A calming journey through the incredible world of dinosaurs, science, and survival. In this video, we'll gently explore the hidden history behind the park that changed everything. From the origins of InGen and the cloning of prehistoric life to the deeper themes of control, chaos, and nature's power. Whether you're a lifelong fan or just looking for something relaxing to unwind to, settle in as we walk through the legacy of Jurassic Park, one story at a time. Hammond's vision, the birth of Jurassic Park long before the roars of dinosaurs echoed across Isla Nublar, there was only a dream. A dream held by one man, John Parker Hammond. To most of the world, he was a brilliant, eccentric entrepreneur. To those closest to him, he was something even more complicated, a man with vision, ambition, and a deep, unwavering belief that wonder could be manufactured, if only one tried hard enough. Hammond was born in Scotland, though he would go on to travel the world. As a younger man, he dabbled in everything from wildlife preservation to entertainment. He opened a small chain of animal parks and even experimented with holographic zoos, but none of these ventures ever fully satisfied his thirst for something greater, something never before seen, something alive and ancient. What fascinated Hammond most wasn't simply animals or nature, it was the idea of resurrecting the past. At some point in the 1980s, Hammond founded International Genetic Technologies, or InGen for short. It was a quiet, private biotechnology company headquartered in Palo Alto, California, but with deep operations elsewhere, most notably in Central America. Hammond surrounded himself with some of the world's most cutting-edge geneticists, engineers, and paleobiologists. Among them were names that would one day become infamous: Dr. Henry Wu, geneticist; Robert Muldoon, game warden; Ray Arnold, chief engineer; and Donald Gennaro, legal counsel for the project. What InGen was building wasn't just a scientific achievement. It was a theme park, but not like Disneyland or SeaWorld. No, Hammond's vision was far more audacious. He wasn't interested in animatronics or clever illusions. He wanted real dinosaurs. This idea, cloning creatures that had been extinct for 65 million years, wasn't just science fiction to Hammond. He believed in it. He invested everything into it. With cutting-edge advances in genetic engineering and the controversial use of amphibian DNA to patch incomplete dinosaur genomes, InGen's researchers claimed the unthinkable, that they could extract dinosaur DNA from prehistoric mosquitoes trapped in amber and use it to bring dinosaurs back to life. Of course, not everyone believed it. Some laughed. Others called it dangerous. But Hammond moved forward anyway. The location he chose for his park was Isla Nublar, a lush, uninhabited volcanic island located about 120 miles off the coast of Costa Rica. Its isolation made it ideal for a controlled environment, where cloned dinosaurs could be bred, monitored, and displayed, safely away from the mainland. Construction of Jurassic Park began in the late 1980s. It was a monumental task. Infrastructure had to be shipped in, roads cut through the jungle, power systems installed. Massive electric fences were erected across the island to contain the animals. A visitor center, command room, and laboratories were built. The island became a hub of hidden activity, bustling with engineers, paleobotanists, and handlers, all working under strict secrecy. The goal was to create an experience unlike anything the world had ever seen. Imagine families strolling through viewing areas, seeing Brachiosaurus graze in open fields. Picture children laughing as they watch Triceratops roam through enclosures, or peering into artificial habitats filled with Dilophosaurus and Gallimimus. Hammond wanted people to feel awe, not fear, not skepticism, just wonder. His dream was captured in one of his most iconic quotes. "I wanted to show them something that wasn't an illusion, something that was real, something they could see and touch," an aim not devoid of merit. To Hammond, Jurassic Park wasn't just a business. It was proof that the impossible could be made possible, that science could bring back a lost world, and that this miracle could be shared with everyone. But his dream wasn't without its critics or its complications. In order to satisfy nervous investors and legal teams, Hammond arranged a preview visit to the park before it could be open to the public. He invited 3 experts: Dr. Alan Grant, a respected paleontologist; Dr. Ellie Sattler, a paleobotanist; and Dr. Ian Malcolm, a chaotician and mathematician known for his work in the unpredictability of complex systems. They were joined by InGen's lawyer, Donald Gennaro, and Hammond's own grandchildren, Lex and Tim Murphy. Hammond believed this group would validate his dream, that they'd be dazzled by what they saw, that any lingering doubts would be wiped away once they stood before living, breathing dinosaurs. But of course, we know what happened next. Behind the grandeur and gleaming facilities, Jurassic Park had flaws. Some technical, some human. Security systems were vulnerable. Personnel were under pressure. And the dinosaurs, they weren't as controllable as Hammond hoped. Though this chapter of the story turns darker, that's for later. For now, it's enough to rest in the awe of that initial vision. The idea that one man, driven by wonder and imagination, could reach across time to bring dinosaurs into the modern world. That he could bottle magic. That he could create Jurassic Park. In hindsight, Hammond's dream may have been naive, even reckless, but it was born from a genuine desire to inspire, to educate, to ignite curiosity in young minds and reawaken ancient wonders in older ones. In that sense, Jurassic Park was never just about dinosaurs. It was about belief. Belief in science. Belief in possibility. And belief in the idea that something extraordinary could be made real. Just because someone dared to try. So, as the jungle winds rustle across Isla Nublar, as the sun sets over electric fences and empty paddocks, let your thoughts drift to the man who imagined it all, to the dreamer who saw the past as the future, to the gentle beginnings of a park unlike any other. InGen and the science of cloning dinosaurs. To understand how Jurassic Park became possible, you have to understand the science behind it, or at least the version of science that InGen pursued. It began not with dinosaurs, but with amber. Amber is fossilized tree resin, sometimes millions of years old. Within some of these hardened golden stones, scientists had discovered ancient insects, perfectly preserved, like relics frozen in time. Among them, the key to everything, prehistoric mosquitoes. These mosquitoes, at some point in the distant past, had bitten dinosaurs. And in doing so, they had ingested their blood that carried strands of dinosaur DNA. Preserved in amber, this blood became the foundation for InGen's breakthrough. The process, as explained by John Hammond and his team, seemed almost like magic, but it was rooted in genetic theory. Scientists at InGen extracted fragments of DNA from the bellies of these fossilized insects. That DNA was fragmented, incomplete, and millions of years old, far from perfect. But through the use of modern gene sequencing, they attempted to reconstruct the missing pieces. Where there were gaps in the code, as there often were, the geneticists turned to a surprising solution: the DNA of amphibians, such as frogs, to fill in the missing sequences. The idea was clever, if not controversial. Amphibians were evolutionary cousins to many reptiles. By bridging the ancient code with modern genes, InGen created stable, readable genomes. And with these completed strands of DNA, they moved to the next step: cloning. They didn't grow dinosaurs from scratch in petri dishes. Instead, they used surrogate egg chambers and carefully calibrated artificial wombs, simulating the environment needed to grow embryos. The eggs were incubated in controlled labs, mimicking the conditions of ancient nests. The result? Dinosaurs. Real, living, breathing dinosaurs. Brachiosaurus, towering and graceful. Triceratops, calm and armored. Velociraptors, intelligent and quick. Tyrannosaurus rex, apex predator of a forgotten world. And these weren't just wild guesses. InGen used fossil evidence to determine their appearance, their diets, even their probable behaviors. Of course, not everything could be known. Gaps in science meant that many dinosaurs were part science, part educated guess, and part fiction. InGen knew this. But for Hammond, it didn't matter. The creatures were real enough to inspire awe, real enough to walk through Jurassic Park, and real enough to be admired, studied, and, in time, displayed. Yet cloning was only one part of the science. InGen's research also focused on behavioral control. They engineered genetic fail-safes. For example, all dinosaurs were designed to be female to prevent breeding. They were also bred with lysine dependency, meaning they could not produce a key amino acid on their own. Without supplements provided by InGen staff, the animals would eventually perish, creating a supposed kill switch if the creatures ever escaped. It all sounded perfect on paper. Every system, every animal, Every decision was engineered for control. But nature, as Dr. Ian Malcolm would later say, finds a way. Behind the scenes, InGen's experiments weren't as clean or as controlled as they appeared. Some species showed unexpected intelligence, like the velociraptors. Others became sick, possibly due to environmental factors or miscalculations in their genetic makeup. And the genetic tampering, the mixing of ancient and modern DNA, raised countless ethical questions. Were these truly dinosaurs? Or were they modern inventions, built in the image of ancient life? That question lingered in the labs, even as new creatures hatched and old ones were moved into larger enclosures. But to Hammond, the nuance didn't matter. He saw only the results. And to the public, he believed, results were all that mattered too. InGen scientists, especially Dr. Henry Wu, continued pushing the boundaries. They began experimenting with new species, even customizing genetic traits to make certain dinosaurs more manageable, more marketable, or more exciting to parkgoers. This philosophy would lead to even bolder experiments years later, including the creation of hybrids like the Indominus Rex. But that, too, is a story for another time. In these early days, it was all about ambition. InGen stood at the edge of scientific revolution, blurring the line between what should be done and what could be done. And at the center of it all stood the dinosaurs, majestic, mysterious, and entirely unnatural. As the fluorescent lights buzzed softly in the laboratories, and the artificial eggs turned slowly in their incubation trays, InGen's legacy was being born. Not just in creatures, but in consequences. Still, in that moment, when the first dinosaur took its first breath, it must have felt like a triumph. A heartbeat from another world. A miracle of science. And a signal that the age of humans controlling life had truly begun. Isla Nublar and Isla Sorna, the secret locations the Jurassic Park story begins in places few maps mention and even fewer ever visit. Off the Pacific coast of Central America lies a small chain of islands known as Las Cinco Muertes, the Five Deaths. Shrouded in mist and tropical storms, each island holds its own secrets. But two of them, in particular, became the beating heart of InGen's dinosaur empire. The first was Isla Nublar. Roughly 120 miles west of Costa Rica, Isla Nublar was a remote, mountainous island blanketed in rainforest and veiled by ocean fog. The island's native name, Clouded Sanctuary, reflected its natural mystery. When InGen acquired the rights to develop the island, it wasn't for science alone, it was for spectacle. On Isla Nublar, John Hammond envisioned the crown jewel of human achievement. Jurassic Park, a fully operational dinosaur theme park and wildlife preserve, built on an island isolated from the rest of the world. This was where the dinosaurs would be displayed. Tourists would arrive by ferry, pass through ornate gates, and be taken on a guided tour in electric vehicles through carefully planned enclosures. Every species would have its own paddock. Carnivores would be kept behind reinforced fences. Herbivores would roam open fields. Security systems, motion sensors, and trained staff would ensure order. On paper, it was paradise. But Isla Nublar wasn't alone in its purpose. Behind the park, behind the curtain of public spectacle, was another island, one that very few ever knew about. Isla Sorna. Larger and more rugged, Isla Sorna was located further west in the archipelago. It wasn't a theme park. It was a research facility, codenamed Site B. This is where the real science happened. Dinosaurs were bred, studied, and raised in secrecy before being transported to Isla Nublar. The cloning labs were housed in underground bunkers and steel-paneled laboratories, scattered across the jungle interior. The dinosaurs hatched here were given time to grow, to stabilize. They grazed in the open on controlled ranges. Unlike Nublar, there were no tourists, no rides, just scientists and infrastructure hidden among the trees. But after the fall of Jurassic Park, Isla Sorna took on a new identity. When InGen collapsed and the survivors of Nublar fled, Site B was abandoned. The fences lost power. The labs fell silent. And the dinosaurs, still living, still thriving, were left alone to roam. Without human interference, Sorna became something else entirely, a wild, unsupervised ecosystem of creatures resurrected from another age. Over the years, nature reclaimed the island. Buildings became overgrown. Paddocks fell to ruin. And dinosaurs, some in species previously thought extinct on the island, reappeared. It wasn't long before people began to hear whispers of ships going missing near Sorna's coast, of strange creatures spotted near fishing villages, of loud calls echoing from distant islands on stormy nights. The Costa Rican government, fearing an ecological disaster, declared the entire archipelago off-limits. No fly zones, no sailing, no visitation. But secrets are hard to keep. And Sorna's existence, once shadowed and obscure, soon became the subject of investigation, of obsession, of conspiracy theories whispered in science forums and corporate boardrooms alike. Back on Isla Nublar, things didn't fare much better. After the failure of the park's systems and the incident that led to its evacuation, the island was also left abandoned. The dinosaurs survived, and without maintenance, the fences failed. Jurassic Park, the dream, the illusion, was swallowed by jungle and silence. Its visitor centers overgrown, its jeeps rusted and left in place, and the animals, no longer confined, began to form their own order, reclaiming a world once taken from them. It would be years before either island saw human footsteps again. Yet the presence of these places still lingered in the minds of those who had been there. Survivors spoke of them in hushed tones. Scientists speculated about the effects of uncontained prehistoric life. Governments debated what to do, and corporations, hungry for profit, quietly planned how they might one day return. Isla Nublar and Isla Sorna, twin monuments to human ambition and oversight, were no longer just islands. They were living ecosystems, experiments in evolution, and the final resting place of mankind's most daring project. Time passed. Trees grew taller. The sounds of construction faded into the songs of birds and the distant calls of roaming herds. The jungle swallowed everything but the truth, that these islands were no longer under human control, and that something very old had come back to stay. The dinosaurs, stars of the park when Jurassic Park was first released in 1993, it wasn't just a cinematic achievement, it was a scientific reawakening. For many people, the film was their first intimate glimpse into what dinosaurs could look like. But what they saw wasn't exactly what paleontologists had in mind. It's important to remember that Jurassic Park never promised perfect accuracy. It promised wonder. And to that end, director Steven Spielberg and author Michael Crichton crafted dinosaurs that walked a fine line between scientific plausibility and cinematic flair. They needed to be believable, but also terrifying, beautiful, and most importantly, entertaining. Let's start with the most iconic creature of them all. Tyrannosaurus Rex. The T-Rex of Jurassic Park is a towering, thunderous apex predator. Its massive jaws shake the ground with every step. Its roar, though created using a blend of alligator, elephant, and tiger sounds, became one of the most unforgettable in movie history. But in reality, the real Tyrannosaurus Rex likely didn't roar at all. Most paleontologists now believe it would have made deep, rumbling low-frequency sounds, closer to the vibrations of a crocodile or the booming calls of large birds like emus. It also may have had limited vision compared to what's depicted. Though the vision based on movement trait was added in the film for dramatic effect, not grounded science. And then there's the big question, feathers. While the T-Rex in the film is scaly and lizard-like, modern research strongly suggests that many theropods, including juveniles of Tyrannosaurus, likely had feathers. They may not have been fully feathered in adulthood, but the smooth, reptilian look of the film was chosen to inspire awe, not reflect the fossil record. Velociraptors. If Jurassic Park exaggerated any one creature, it was the velociraptor. In the film, raptors are 6 feet tall, hyper-intelligent, communicative, and capable of opening doors. They're one of the most terrifying creatures in the franchise, sleek, fast, and cunning. But the real velociraptor was very different. Velociraptors were about the size of a turkey, around 2 feet tall and 6 feet long, and almost certainly covered in feathers. They were still dangerous predators, but not the human-sized killers portrayed on screen. In fact, the creature depicted in the movie more closely resembles another dromaeosaur called Deinonychus, a much larger raptor discovered in the 1960s. Crichton even acknowledged this, but preferred the name Velociraptor for its dramatic tone. Still, it worked. The Jurassic Park raptor became legendary, inspiring books, toys, games, and a permanent place in pop culture. Dilophosaurus. In one scene, Dennis Nedry encounters a small, frilled dinosaur that spits venom in his face, the Dilophosaurus. It's a memorable moment, but it's entirely fictional. There's no evidence that Dilophosaurus had a frill or that it spit venom. In reality, it was larger than a human, over 20 feet long, and a serious predator. The filmmakers made it small to contrast with the larger species and added the frill and venom for theatrical effect. It was a creative decision, not a scientific one. Brachiosaurus. One of the most magical moments in the first film is when Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler see a Brachiosaurus rear up on its hind legs to eat leaves from a tall tree, bathed in golden light and awe. It's peaceful, elegant, and dreamlike. And while the real Brachiosaurus likely didn't move quite as gracefully, it was indeed one of the largest creatures to ever walk the earth. Its long neck and front legs gave it a giraffe-like stance, and its massive lungs likely produced deep, thunderous sounds. This depiction is one of the more accurate in the film. A majestic herbivore, slow and steady, a true gentle giant. Triceratops fans remember the sick Triceratops scene, with its massive form lying on its side, breathing slowly, as Dr. Sattler examines its condition. The detail was impressive. The size and proportions closely match fossil findings. The practical effects were so well made that it felt as though the animal was truly alive. And Triceratops remains one of the most accurately portrayed dinosaurs in the franchise, sturdy, three-horned, and capable of defending itself from even a T-Rex, as some fossils have suggested through battle scars. So why did the filmmakers choose entertainment over precision? Because they wanted these dinosaurs to feel like characters, not museum exhibits. They needed to move with emotion, to provoke fear, to inspire wonder. Over the years, as new discoveries emerged, like feathered fossils and more insights into dinosaur behavior, the Jurassic Park films remained rooted in their original designs. Even when critics pointed out the inaccuracies, fans embraced the visual language of the franchise. Because for so many, these dinosaurs were real not because of accuracy, but because of how they made us feel. They weren't just science fiction. They were living myths, reborn through sound, movement, and imagination. And sometimes, a myth told beautifully can leave a deeper impact than facts alone. Security gone wrong. The fall of Jurassic Park. In the world of Jurassic Park, the miracle of dinosaur resurrection comes down to a single, elegant explanation: DNA preserved in amber. The concept is simple. Mosquitoes that fed on dinosaurs became trapped in amber millions of years ago. Scientists then extract the dinosaur blood from these ancient insects, sequence the DNA, and fill in the gaps with frog genes. And just like that, dinosaurs walk the earth again. It's a beautiful idea. Almost poetic. But how close is this to real science? Let's take a gentle step into that world. Can DNA survive for millions of years? DNA is a fragile molecule. Over time, it breaks down, especially under heat, moisture, or radiation. Even in ideal conditions, such as being trapped in amber, the molecular structure degrades steadily. Current studies suggest that DNA has a half-life of around 521 years. That means after about 1.5 million years, even the best preserved DNA would be far too fragmented to rebuild an entire genome. And remember, the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park went extinct around 66 million years ago. That's well beyond the preservation limit. So unfortunately, no, we can't extract full dinosaur DNA from amber. Not yet, and maybe not ever. But that hasn't stopped scientists from trying to learn more. Has dinosaur DNA ever been found? There have been claims of fragments, ancient proteins, partial strands, even cell-like structures inside fossils. Some researchers have discovered collagen proteins in dinosaur bones, like those from a Tyrannosaurus rex, which raised the hope that molecules could last longer than we thought. However, none of these findings have led to a full DNA sequence. Most ancient DNA research has focused on more recent extinct species, like woolly mammoths or Neanderthals, where recovery is far more feasible. Still, each discovery brings us a little closer to understanding just what's possible. What about using frog DNA? In Jurassic Park, the gaps in dinosaur DNA are filled with frog genes, allowing the genome to be complete enough to clone. It's a clever plot device, and it explains why some dinosaurs can change sex, a trait found in certain frogs and reptiles. In real science, we often fill in genetic gaps using close relatives. For example, when scientists sequenced the woolly mammoth genome, they used Asian elephant DNA to patch missing sections. But when it comes to dinosaurs, their closest living relatives are not frogs, but birds. So, if we ever attempted to reconstruct a dinosaur genome, we'd more likely use bird DNA, such as from chickens or ostriches, rather than amphibians. The idea of a chicken with turned-on dinosaur genes isn't just science fiction. Researchers like Jack Horner, the real-life paleontologist who inspired Dr. Grant, have explored the concept of a chickenosaurus. By tweaking bird embryos to express ancient traits like tails or teeth, they've taken small steps toward resurrecting traits from deep evolutionary time. It's not cloning a dinosaur, but it's a start. The real science of de-extinction, while dinosaurs are probably out of reach, other extinct animals are not. Projects are underway to try and revive species like the woolly mammoth, passenger pigeon, and Tasmanian tiger. These efforts involve editing the genomes of living relatives and implanting the modified embryos into surrogate mothers. It's slow, delicate work, but it's real. The line between science fiction and fact grows thinner every year. While Jurassic Park imagined a world where science moved too fast, the real world moves cautiously, balancing ethics, ecology, and responsibility. Why cloning in Jurassic Park still feels real even though the cloning process in the film isn't possible in our current reality, it feels possible, and that's what makes it so compelling. Michael Crichton didn't need the science to be exact. He needed it to be believable enough to spark curiosity. And it worked. People left the theater asking questions about amber, mosquitoes, frogs, DNA, and evolution. Museums saw record attendance. Paleontology departments welcomed new students. And interest in genetics soared. The cloning lab in the film, complete with its DNA double helix mascot, Mr. DNA, offered a simplified view of an incredibly complex field, but it opened the door for millions to care about biology and science in a way they hadn't before. The real legacy of fictional science, what Jurassic Park gave us, wasn't just a story about cloning. It gave us a glimpse into possibility. It showed us that even the most unimaginable dreams, bringing back ancient life, could be thought about, questioned, studied. And even as we fall asleep tonight, in the soft hum of prehistoric dreams, the idea lingers. What if science one day gets close? What if we really could see a creature from 66 million years ago, not on a screen, but living, breathing, moving? That sense of wonder, of possibility, is what keeps the heart of Jurassic Park beating. Not just dinosaurs, but the belief that, with knowledge, anything might be possible someday. The evolution of the clones, hybrids, and new species far out in the Pacific Ocean, off the coast of Costa Rica, lies a small, mysterious island shrouded in mist and memory. Its name is Isla Nublar, Cloud Island in Spanish. This volcanic landmass, only 87 miles west of the mainland, is where John Hammond's dream took shape. The park, the fences, the labs, and the dinosaurs, all were built on this small speck of jungle in the sea. But beneath the surface of that dream lies a deep and layered story, one of secrecy, science, and the slow, steady unraveling of control. Let's gently explore this island and the world it holds. A remote paradise turned scientific playground in the Jurassic Park films, Isla Nublar is shown as a lush, mountainous island, filled with thick rainforest, craggy cliffs, and hidden lagoons. From the moment the helicopter crests the island's cliffs in the first film, there's a sense of majesty and isolation. This place feels untouched, ancient, sacred. But as the story unfolds, we learn that InGen, the genetics company behind Jurassic Park, has turned this island into a massive biological complex. Not just a zoo, but a fully functioning bioengineering facility hidden behind waterfalls and electric fences. The island is divided into zones. The paddocks for dinosaurs, the visitor center, the worker village, and of course, the embryonic lab deep beneath the surface. Few were ever allowed to see it. Fewer still understood the consequences of what was being done there. Geography and climate. Isla Nublar is roughly 22 square miles in area, shaped like a teardrop. It features volcanic ridges that dominate its center, dense jungles that cloak its lower slopes, cliffside beaches and inland rivers, and a central lagoon. Used in Jurassic World for the Mosasaurus arena, though fictional, its placement off the coast of Costa Rica mirrors many real volcanic islands in the Pacific Ring of Fire. Its climate is tropical, hot and humid, perfect for the prehistoric life it houses. Rain is frequent, storms roll in often, just like the one that triggers the park's collapse in the first film. Indigenous history, book lore. In the original Jurassic Park novel by Michael Crichton, Isla Nublar was once inhabited by a small indigenous group known as the Tunsi. Long before InGen arrived, the Tunsi believed the island was cursed. They spoke of strange creatures and buried gods in the mountain caves. Whether this was simply mythology or foreshadowing of what was to come is left up to the imagination. But when InGen bought the island, the Tunsi were relocated. The island was declared off-limits, and construction began in secret. In the films, this backstory is only hinted at, but it adds a layer of mystery to the island's long history. InGen's secrets and the hidden facilities most fans know about the main park, the visitor center, the raptor pens, the electric fences. But Isla Nublar held much more than just the surface attractions. In Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, we learn of a mountain bunker, Lockwood's emergency lab, buried underground, designed for secret operations. This included genetic testing, weaponization research, and hybrid development. Even deeper in the lore, InGen had contingency plans to evacuate key embryos, hide research, and control the island remotely from offshore stations. And then there was the control room, the beating heart of the park, where technicians like Ray Arnold and Dennis Nedry monitored every door, camera, and power grid line. This wasn't just an island. It was an entire ecosystem of science, surveillance, and synthetic biology. Post-failure, what happened after the park fell after the events of the first film, Isla Nublar was abandoned. Nature began to reclaim it. Fences rusted. Roads cracked. The dinosaurs roamed freely, forming a new, wild ecosystem never intended by its creators. In the 2 decades between Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, the island evolved on its own. Herbivores formed herds. Carnivores hunted freely. A natural balance, or something like it, emerged. By the time Jurassic World was built on the island in 2015, InGen returned to a wild, dangerous landscape, filled with its own rules and territory lines. Much of the early work of the new park involved recapturing dinosaurs, building stronger infrastructure, and suppressing the chaos left behind. But some things, like the raptor's intelligence and the T-Rex's territorial memory, couldn't be erased. The island's final fate in Fallen Kingdom, Isla Nublar meets its tragic end. The island's long-dormant volcano, Mount Sibo, erupts in a violent display. Lava flows consume the jungle. Ash rains from the sky. Dinosaurs panic and flee. It is a moment of deep emotional weight, the death of the island, and the end of an era. We watch as creatures, resurrected from extinction, face it once more. For many fans, this was the symbolic closing of Jurassic Park's chapter. Isla Nublar was not just a location, it was the soul of the series. And as it vanished beneath smoke and flame, so too did Hammond's dream. A place of wonder and warning in the end, Isla Nublar is more than a tropical island. It is a mirror, reflecting the hubris of man, the beauty of nature, and the delicate line between control and chaos. When we think of Jurassic Park, we don't think of labs or test tubes. We think of that island, shrouded in cloud, full of mystery, and echoing with the distant call of creatures long gone. A place that shouldn't have existed, but somehow did, if only for a moment in time. And as you let your thoughts drift, imagine that island now, quiet, overgrown, untouched by man. The trees sway gently, the rivers run clear, and somewhere, deep in the jungle, a lone call breaks the silence. Jurassic Park may be gone, but Isla Nublar still lives on in memory, in dream, and in the stories we tell when the night is calm and the world feels ancient again. Characters through the franchise more than 20 years after the fall of Jurassic Park, a new vision emerged from the ruins of Isla Nublar. Sleek, modern, and commercially dazzling, Jurassic World opened its doors to the public in 2005, offering everything John Hammond once dreamed of at a far larger scale. But this time, the dream had a corporate sponsor. Masrani Global Corporation, a tech and telecommunications giant, took the reins of InGen's legacy. With advanced infrastructure, billions in funding, and new breakthroughs in genetic cloning, they transformed the island into a fully operational theme park, one that welcomed over 20,000 visitors a day. The gates opened. The monorail ran. The dinosaurs roamed in carefully monitored paddocks. And for a moment, it all seemed to work. The park that was promised, unlike Hammond's original park, Jurassic World, was not just a proof of concept. It was a thriving tourist destination. Complete with hotels, restaurants, water shows, and interactive exhibits. Visitors could kayak beside peaceful herbivores, ride atop baby triceratops in the gentle giant's petting zoo, watch the aquatic mosasaurus leap from its lagoon to swallow sharks midair, or view the mighty Tyrannosaurus Rex being fed like a zoo attraction. Security systems had been overhauled. Scientists were monitored. Protocols were in place. It was an ecosystem designed not just to contain danger, but to sell it. And the world responded. Crowds poured in. Merchandise flew off shelves. Investors beamed. It was the modern miracle of science, spectacle, and showmanship. But under the surface, the cracks had already begun to form. Bigger, louder, scarier, with attendance beginning to plateau, park executives pushed for something more. More teeth. More intrigue. More wow factor. Out of that pressure came one of InGen's most controversial creations, the Indominus Rex. A hybrid dinosaur, engineered for spectacle. Created from the DNA of multiple species, including velociraptor, cuttlefish, and tree frog, Indominus was not bound by the behavioral limits of any one animal. She was a predator bred to adapt, to deceive, and above all, to draw crowds. But what the scientists could not predict was the creature's level of intelligence and malice. The Indominus did not merely escape her paddock. She manipulated her surroundings, tricked her captors, and turned the island into a battlefield. The old lesson returned. Life finds a way. The fall of Jurassic World, what followed was chaos, swift, violent, and irreversible. As the Indominus rampaged through the park, it caused mass evacuations, the release of other dangerous predators, the destruction of the aviary, releasing pteranodons into the skies, and the deaths of both guests and staff despite the heroics of park operations manager Claire Deering and raptor handler Owen Grady. Jurassic World could not be saved. Even the original T-Rex, Hammond's prized predator, was released to face off against the Indominus in a primal battle of titans. The island fell silent once more. For the second time, a park built on Isla Nublar collapsed under the weight of its creator's ambition. A glimpse into hybridization and control. The fall of Jurassic World revealed more than just corporate failure. It exposed a darker side of InGen's continuing operations, one driven not by public wonder, but military ambition. Behind closed doors, InGen had begun researching the weaponization of dinosaurs. Led by Hoskins, the security director, the company saw creatures like the raptors as potential battlefield assets, trainable, loyal, and deadly. The Indominus was just the first prototype. This theme would carry over into the next chapter of the saga, blurring the line between animal and invention, science and warfare. What started as a park had become a proving ground. The human cost for those who lived and worked on Isla Nublar, the island, was more than a project. It was home. It was purpose. It was, for some, a second chance. Claire Deering believed in the park's mission. Owen Grady saw the potential in understanding the raptors, not exploiting them. Even the dinosaurs themselves, especially Blue, the lead velociraptor, showed loyalty, emotion, and the struggle for survival. These weren't just monsters. They were living creatures, caught between worlds. When Jurassic World fell, it wasn't just a corporate failure. It was the loss of something hopeful and strange and almost beautiful. Echoes of Hammond's dream throughout the films. There's a ghost that lingers over the island. John Hammond himself. Though long gone by the time of Jurassic World, his influence is felt everywhere. In the design of the visitor center, in the choice of Isla Nublar, in the idea that humans could coexist with the past, if only they approached it with care. But Hammond's vision was reshaped. What once began as a passion for science and awe became a product, a brand, and a ticking time bomb. Jurassic World was Hammond's dream filtered through the lens of capitalism. Polished, packaged, and doomed. The end of the park era. After the events of Jurassic World, Isla Nublar was abandoned once again. But unlike the first time, this return to wildness did not mark peace. A volcanic eruption loomed. Time was running out. Governments debated whether the dinosaurs should be saved. Activists rallied. The world had to decide, were these creatures part of nature now, or something else entirely? As you drift off, picture the silent monorails, empty boardwalks, and overgrown paddocks. Jurassic World may have been newer, larger, and louder, but it fell for the same reason the original park did, because life cannot be tamed. And no matter how many fences are built, the wild always finds a way in. Jurassic World, Reopening the dream, it began with the simple resurrection of ancient life, bringing dinosaurs back from extinction through recovered DNA. But as technology advanced and ambition deepened, the line between natural recreation and man-made invention quietly disappeared. InGen, once content to clone creatures of the past, turned its gaze toward creatures that had never existed at all. The era of hybrid dinosaurs had begun. Not found in fossils, not shaped by time. These animals were made from scratch, designed for power, spectacle, and sometimes control. Let's drift into the shadowy chapter of the Jurassic saga, one filled with whispers of science gone too far. Indominus Rex, the first abomination, she was born in a sterile lab beneath the jungles of Isla Nublar. Larger than A.T. Rex. Faster than a raptor. Smarter than anyone anticipated. The Indominus Rex was the first fully realized hybrid, created by Dr. Henry Wu, using a cocktail of genes from Tyrannosaurus rex, for size and dominance velociraptor, for speed and intelligence cuttlefish, for camouflage tree frog, for thermal regulation and snake DNA. To allow unhinging of the jaw, what resulted wasn't a dinosaur, it was a weapon. The Indominus escaped not because it was strong, but because it was clever. It manipulated heat signatures, learned patterns, even removed its own tracking implant. She didn't just kill to eat, she hunted for sport. And for all her power, she was alone. No family, no natural history, no place in the ecosystem. She was born in silence and brought death in her wake. The science behind the Scales InGen's hybrid program pushed the boundaries of genetics. Rather than finding complete strands of dinosaur DNA, scientists patched the gaps with genes from modern animals, amphibians, reptiles, cephalopods. This technique was pioneered early on, even in Hammond's original park, when frog DNA was used to complete the cloning process. But with time, this method became a tool for deliberate design, not just necessity. Dr. Henry Wu believed that genetic purity was a myth, that nature was just code, and code could be rewritten. If a raptor needed to be faster, it could be. If a predator needed camouflage, it could be given that too. What began as scientific curiosity quickly blurred into bioengineering by desire. And no one, not even Wu, fully understood what they were creating. Indoraptor, the next evolution after the Indominus Rex was destroyed, her legacy lived on. In Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, were introduced to the Indoraptor, a smaller, sleeker hybrid bred in the Lockwood Estate's underground lab. This creature was designed specifically for military use, a prototype for a line of obedient, deadly animals. Its genetic roots were even darker, half Indominus Rex, half Velociraptor. With DNA from Blue's bloodline, enhanced hearing, a hypersensitive visual system, and the ability to follow laser-activated targeting commands, it didn't just respond to threats. It could be guided like a weapon. But the Indoraptor was unstable, aggressive, cunning, and eerily self-aware. It hunted not out of instinct, but for pleasure. In the end, it was a monster too volatile to control, just like its predecessor. Ethics in the lab, these hybrids force us to ask, where does science end and playing God begin? InGen and Misrani Global saw the hybrids as property, assets. They were given designations, not names. Created for spectacle, not survival. But these creatures felt pain, formed bonds, and in some cases showed empathy. Even Blue, the velociraptor raised by Owen Grady, exhibited loyalty and protective instincts. She was not a machine, but a living being. And when Wu tampered with her genetic material to create the Indoraptor, he violated something deeper than science, the trust between human and animal. The human hand in evolution hybridization was not just about dinosaurs. It was a mirror held up to human ambition, our desire to reshape nature to suit our needs. In the Jurassic saga, this ambition leads to unpredictable behaviors, ecological instability, and ultimately, chaos. The hybrids were not nature's mistake. They were ours. Creatures born not in the wild, but in test tubes, without ecosystems, instincts, or places in the food chain. The world they were made for did not exist. Echoes of Frankenstein, there's something literary in these hybrids. Echoes of Frankenstein's monster, stitched together from parts and abandoned. The Indoraptor in particular is filmed like a horror figure, stalking dark hallways, opening doors, tilting its head at prey like a curious child. It isn't just terrifying, it's tragic. Because at its core, the Indoraptor was alone. No kin, No past. No future. It was built to serve a purpose it didn't understand. And when it failed to fulfill it, it was destroyed. These are not just monsters. They're reflections of what happens when we push too far without asking if we should. The unseen hybrids in the expanded lore, comics, games, and concept art. There are dozens of hybrid ideas that never made it to film. A Stegoceratops, combining a Stegosaurus and Triceratops, a flying predator with pterosaur wings and snake fangs, hybrid aquatic creatures for naval use, even rumors of genetically altered humans. Though never confirmed, these ideas were shelved, but their presence in the background reminds us. The boundary was always meant to be pushed further. And that's what makes the hybrid era so unsettling. Not just what was made, but what almost was. A warning wrapped in scales in the end. The hybrids serve a narrative role beyond the plot. They represent a theme that echoes through every Jurassic story. Control is an illusion. We try to harness nature, mold it, improve upon it. But the more we tamper, the more we unleash what we cannot predict. The Indominus, the Indoraptor, the creatures that never should have existed. They are not errors. They are the logical conclusion of unchecked ambition. And as you close your eyes and let your mind wander, imagine them now, alone in the dark, beneath flickering lab lights. Not quite dinosaur, not quite machine, just shadows of what could have been, and a soft reminder, some lines are not meant to be crossed. Timeline of events, Canon recap. Before a single dinosaur was ever resurrected, before a park was built, fences wired, or tours scheduled, one man already knew how it would end. Dr. Ian Malcolm, chaotic Ian, mathematician, philosopher, saw the flaw in the dream from the very start. He wasn't a pessimist. He simply understood how little we actually control. His words, once dismissed as dramatic or arrogant, would echo louder with each unfolding disaster. And now, decades later, they feel almost whispered into the bones of the franchise itself. Life finds a way. The heart of chaos theory isn't about disorder. It's about how complex systems behave unpredictably, even when starting from known conditions. To Malcolm, Jurassic Park was never a scientific marvel. It was a chaotic system wrapped in the illusion of stability. Engineered creatures. Man-made enclosures. A false belief that order could be maintained in a living, breathing ecosystem. But the truth, as he put it, was simple. You never had control. That's the illusion. And he was right. Predictable unpredictability, from the original island collapse, to the Indominus outbreak, to dinosaurs roaming the mainland. Every disaster followed a pattern Malcolm had tried to explain. Tiny changes, like a power outage, cascaded into chaos. Redundant systems failed in unexpected ways. Human error, pride, and greed amplified every risk. These weren't freak accidents. They were inevitable outcomes in a system too complex to manage. Like water finding new paths down a hand, nature slipped through the cracks, again and again. A philosopher in a leather jacket, Malcolm's style was unorthodox. Black clothing, sarcastic quips, fingers always tapping out some invisible equation. But beneath the charm was a man trying to warn the world. He didn't object to science. He objected to irresponsible science. To him, cloning a dinosaur wasn't a triumph, it was a shortcut. A way to stand on the shoulders of nature without understanding its weight. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses, he once said. And before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a lunchbox. These weren't just clever lines. They were premonitions. The butterfly effect on Isla, Nublar, in chaos theory. The butterfly effect is the idea that small causes can have massive consequences. And Jurassic Park is full of butterflies. One sabotaged embryo theft leads to raptors roaming the visitor center. A corporate decision to build a hybrid results in dozens of deaths. A moment of silence in a boardroom unleashes extinction-level threats onto the mainland. Every action, no matter how well-meaning, spirals outward. Because life, when engineered, does not follow rules. It follows its own patterns. And Malcolm knew, when nature is boxed in, it pushes back. Ethics wrapped in equations. Malcolm's warnings weren't just mathematical, they were moral. His concern wasn't just that the park would fail. It was that people would get hurt when it did. And that the lesson wouldn't be learned the first time, or the second, or even the third. Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. This wasn't just a jab at Dr. Wu or Hammond. It was a reflection of humanity's growing tendency to pursue progress without reflection. In Malcolm's view, unchecked science wasn't discovery, it was arrogance. The island is a microcosm each version of Jurassic Park, be it Isla Nublar or Isla Sorna, serves as a contained world, a test of whether order can hold. And each time, it breaks down. The dinosaurs don't just escape, they adapt. Raptors learn to open doors. The Indominus manipulates her own tracking signal. Raptors form social hierarchies and communicate. Life continues, evolves, expands. It's not just survival, it's a reclamation. Nature doesn't just break the rules, it rewrites them. From observer to advocate in the later stories, Malcolm's role shifts. No longer just the voice of warning, he becomes a kind of reluctant guidepost. In Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, he testifies before the U.S. government, not with emotion, but with sobering clarity, we must not interfere. To him, letting the dinosaurs die in a volcanic eruption isn't cruelty, it's the consequence of unnatural resurrection. But when those creatures are saved, then released into the world, he doesn't panic. He just repeats it again. Welcome to Jurassic World. The system has changed. Chaos has left the island. And now, the world itself is the experiment. The wisdom and warnings Malcolm doesn't claim to have the answers, but he never stops asking the questions. Should we have resurrected them? Can we live alongside them? Will we ever learn to respect nature's balance? His philosophy doesn't seek control. It seeks awareness, a recognition that nature is not a machine to be tamed, but a force to be understood. And if ignored, it remembers. Falling asleep to fractals as you close your eyes, picture the branching curves of a fractal. A visual representation of chaos theory, endless patterns, repeating and diverging, infinite in detail. That's what Malcolm saw in Jurassic Park. Not a theme park, not an experiment, but a fractal unfolding in real time. And at the center of it, the simplest, most powerful truth: life finds a way. What if dinosaurs ruled the earth again? Long after the fences fell silent, after the last helicopter left the island, the legacy of Jurassic Park endured, not in bones or blueprints, but in questions. What does it mean to resurrect the past? What happens when wonder and ambition outpace responsibility? And who pays the price when we choose not to listen? The story of Jurassic Park was never just about dinosaurs. It was about us. The power of imagination. In 1993, Jurassic Park was a miracle of its own, blending cutting-edge CGI with practical effects to bring creatures to life in ways audiences had never seen. For many, it was their first time seeing a dinosaur move not as a fossil or a drawing, but as something breathing, blinking, roaring. It awakened a sense of wonder. And yet, in the very same story, that wonder quickly turned to danger. What began as spectacle became caution. The franchise dared to ask, just because we can bring these creatures back, should we? A franchise that grew with its audience, the Jurassic saga evolved as its viewers did. What started as a thrilling adventure gradually transformed into a meditation on science, ethics, and control. The first film taught us that nature cannot be contained. The second, The Lost World, showed how quickly we try to exploit what we've barely begun to understand. The third stripped things down. Survival at its most basic, where nature rules again. Jurassic World reminded us how quickly wonder becomes commodified. Fallen Kingdom blurred the line between living animal and intellectual property. And Dominion expanded the dilemma: what happens when the unnatural becomes part of the natural world? In every chapter, the message was the same: we are not in control. Dinosaurs as metaphor. Though the series centered on prehistoric creatures, the dinosaurs themselves were never the villains. They were innocent. It was human decisions, greed, pride, impatience, that caused destruction. Each dinosaur was a mirror. The velociraptor, intelligent and adaptable, reflecting our own cunning. The T-Rex, powerful but ultimately indifferent, like nature itself. The Indominus Rex, a creature shaped entirely by human hands and unnatural intent in creating monsters. We revealed our own flaws. And in every escape, every roar, every final chase, there was a quiet truth: they didn't break free. We let them out. The cautionary tale of science unchecked. Jurassic Park is often grouped with other cautionary science stories: Frankenstein, Blade Runner, Ex Machina. It belongs among them because it confronts the same core idea: the consequences of playing God. Dr. Wu believed in controlled creation. John Hammond believed in curated wonder. Henry Mills believed in profit. But the dinosaurs didn't follow those beliefs. They followed instincts. And every time those instincts clashed with fences, cages, plans, it was the people who had built those plans who were unprepared. The emotional legacy beyond the science and spectacle, Jurassic Park left a profound emotional imprint. It taught us awe as we watched a brachiosaurus rise to its full height beneath the island's sun. It taught us fear as raptors clicked claws across kitchen tiles. It taught us loss as ancient creatures fell to modern weapons. And it taught us hope as the final survivors looked back one last time before flying away. At its best, the franchise made us feel small. Not diminished, but humbled. A reminder that we are part of a larger story, one that began long before us and may continue long after we're gone. Legacy beyond the screen. Jurassic Park's influence stretched far beyond the movies. It reignited public interest in paleontology, inspiring new generations of scientists and fossil hunters. It changed how we imagined dinosaurs, giving them behaviors, personalities, and intelligence. It became part of cultural memory. Quoted, parroted, referenced in everything from video games to classroom discussions. More than anything, it gave the world a new language for talking about nature, risk, and responsibility. Even people who have never seen the movies know the phrase, "Life finds a way." Dinosaurs in the real world. By the end of Jurassic World Dominion, the question isn't whether dinosaurs can live among us. It's whether we can live among them. The film's final moments don't offer easy answers. There are no clear solutions, only adaptation. A mosasaurus hunts a fishing trawler. A triceratops grazes beside elephants. Pteranodons soar above city skylines. It's not a world conquered. It's a world changed. And that, too, is the legacy of Jurassic Park, a future not dictated by control, but shaped by coexistence. Falling asleep with the story as this hour of lore draws to a close, let your mind drift back through jungles and laboratories, through quiet paddocks and roaring enclosures. Let the echoes of ancient footsteps fade into stillness. You've walked with giants. You've watched them rise. And you've seen the cost of bringing them back. Now, as the world sleeps, so too does the island. Its secrets buried in vines, its cages rusted shut, its story whispered on the wind. And somewhere out there, beneath moonlight and memory, a distant call lingers. Not a threat, not a warning. Just a reminder, we were never the only story. Good night.